fan favorite results. That's what the lurkers and hosts all voted on. We ranked you guys on what we thought were our favorite players. And then we're going to go over the player of the season, which was an award that you guys ranked each other on. We'll reveal that. And then we have a special award to give away the second time we're doing that. But we'll get into that later in the podcast. We'll explain what that is. I guess I'll kick off the podcast now. 32 days, 20 castaways, 3 co-hosts, and 1 podcast. This is Stranded in the Kuril Islands, and I am your host, Poody. Today we're joined by co-hosts Sarah and Danny.
Hi.
Both former fan favorites. How fitting.
And someone else is going to join us.
And we're also joined by our newest winner. Congratulations, Michelle.
Thank you.
Welcome, welcome.
Yes, welcome. You've been forewarned about this community. Enter at your own risk. All right, so I'm just going to jump in and start off since I didn't include Victoria, but we have 19 people to go through on this fan favorite. So we'll jump off the bat with, no surprise, Julie is in 19th place with 10.55% of the vote. Not much to say about Julie other than she would have been entertaining had she actually shown up.
I loved the interview. She had a really good interview. I'm sad.
She also had like a really funny first day in the game, but that's it. We never saw her again. Floated off into the great beyond.
Yeah, I'm actually going to unmute some people right off the bat. Let's go with Reem and Aurora, since they might have known Julie some.
Hey.
And Reem should be able to join now.
Guys,
So, anything to add about Julie?
I actually really liked her from the get-go. I pegged her as my goat for a little bit, and then she ghosted on me, and that's literally all I have.
Yeah, I had very few conversations with her, but I actually liked her a lot, and then left.
Yeah, I think we were excited because she was talking about how much she was going to break down and cry the whole season. So we were excited from that perspective. Unfortunately, she didn't show up enough to do that. So that's all we can really say about her. Other than we know she's an avid baker.
That's what I heard.
After we heard postseason, that's all we know.
She liked The Bachelor.
Maybe she got a good acting good. But anyway, let's move swiftly forward. In 18th place, we have Marcus with 18.95% of the vote.
Oof.
Yeah, a little oof. I think, anyone who goes inactive or semi-active is going to be low. At first, we did not like Marcus at all, but then he started to kind of grow on us once he became a little bit more strategic.
For himself.
Yeah. Unfortunately, he disappeared. I think he was in the middle of law school, if I'm correct.
Me too.
Yeah. See, here's my thing about Marcus, is I think he wouldn't be this low in a different cast. I just think every person from here on out has like at least one moment that you can think about this game and you associate it with them. And that's why the lurkers, rank them higher, because like, oh yeah, this person had this great moment and Marcus was just kind of there. So, he was fine. That's all I've got to say.
All I have to say about Marcus is 2 words: lady numbers. He talked to me about my supposed lady numbers a lot, so yeah.
What does that mean?
Oh, all the girls I had voting together.
Oh.
It was the weirdest possible way of saying it.
The lady numbers.
He was one of the first ones that kind of was talking about maybe the women weren't actually women. And then we just later associated that with Chris.
To be fair to all of them, it is very rare to come onto an online game and have 10 women playing. So he just didn't have faith in us.
I think I'll add Ron and Ace to this part, if you have anything of interest to add.
About Marcus?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to this man. That's all I've ever had to say about him.
Yeah, I know. I think the most notable part of Marcus is your feud with him, Ron.
Mm-hmm. He knows what he did.
I don't know this. I'm sorry to this man.
Are you not familiar with the meme?
No, I know the meme. What did he do to you that pissed you off so much?
Just existed. I just could not stand the man.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair.
And then the real tea was that the night War Dog was voted off, I was not actually at that tribal council. I told everyone I was at a concert. I was actually on a date, but I was not paying attention and didn't have time to switch my vote. So my grand plan to just like boot out Marcus with a big fuck you message was kind of upended and bit me in the ass for a quick moment.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was the only thing. We were somewhat hoping for a Ron and Marcus showdown, but then he just ghosted, so it wasn't a very satisfying conclusion to that.
It wasn't, no.
I call it a B storyline for that try.
You know what? I'll take it.
All right, so that was Marcus. That's enough about him. Let's move on to 17th place. We have DEVENS with 20.55% of the vote. I think, of course, he's going to be low from the viewer's perspective because I think a lot of people were frustrated with his activity level, as we know. But I don't think he was necessarily a bad player. I just don't think he was around enough to be fully realized. But Randy, I'm going to unmute you now so you can talk about your buddy.
Wait, okay.
I loved Devin so much. He was fantastic. We didn't talk a whole lot, but him and I were close, and we always talk about the vote to some capacity. He was great. I just wished he was around more.
Well, I think that's the problem. What do you have to say, Aurora?
No, I was just going to say it's tough when someone that is on so little beats somebody who's on so much. That's all. That was pretty much all I had to say.
Yeah. Well, I also think it's tough from a player's perspective when someone's not on enough because you can't really play with them. Like, he would come on and not have a good idea of what had been going on or where the numbers were.
Yeah. And that's my point, I guess, is like,
yeah.
And I said this in one of my confessionals, like, I almost wished that I would have not played as much because I think I would have gotten further. And that's just part of my personality, whatever. But yeah, I think that would have actually benefited me.
I feel like he hindered some plans that you guys were trying to make. I feel like you guys may have been trying to work on a vote at one point, and he went offline until the vote, so you had to stick with the original plan. I feel like that happened at one point, and that was the big issue with me for him. I hated that you guys were struggling to talk to him.
Again, I feel bad for him because I know he had some issues at that time as to why he was not active, but
he had a lot of, I'll say that.
Yeah, I will say we have to thank the man for saving Susie in the pre-merge. Made it well worthwhile that he was in the game. All right, well, let's move on from DEVENS. In 16th place, we have Crystal with 38.35% of the vote.
Honestly, she's too low.
Well, she's got a significant bump up from DEVENS, who probably halved her placement,
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Once again, we have so many people that we love this season, and the fact that Crystal is this low, despite being a huge part of the pre-merge, is just a sign that we had a ton of great people at the merge. But yeah, she was great. I mean, of the women's tribe, I felt like she was probably the most calm and collected person for the first, 4 or 5 rounds, however long she made it. But, she was still catty in confessionals, which we love. And
yeah, I think we had all thought she would be a winner pick for a lot of people. Like we were all pretty convinced of the women's tribe. She was probably playing the best on that tribe at that particular point because she was kind of in the middle of all the alliances, but no one suspected her of that.
Yeah.
Her boot was the point where I started hating the men.
He says, oh, well. It was tough because we had already lost 3 women, and then to lose another one was a little bit like, shit, this is not going the right way. Season's on a dark path, I think you had said.
Yeah, I said that multiple times throughout this. I said that a lot.
That said, it worked out well. So did anyone have anything they can add about Crystal?
She voted herself out.
Yeah.
That actually helped soften the blow of losing her pre-merge. Was that
it was entirely her fault.
Yeah, she totally deserved it.
It was devastating for me. I was devastated.
Susie was for 3 weeks, I'm pretty sure. 3 weeks. She had no idea what happened.
It did leave a good ongoing meme because without that vote, I think Randy gets figured out a lot sooner. And I think that it kind of changes everything. I think Randy goes a lot sooner. And then the women don't have their little flip-flopper with them for the rest of the game. So thank you for your sacrifice, Crystal.
But also, Susie, why did you not, I guess I feel like we all understood what was going on. Why did you not believe that she voted for you?
So basically, Randy convinced me that it must have been Crystal. And then later, Chris told me that he voted for me, that Randy did. Chris told me Randy voted for me, and I knew I partly knew that was true because that he thought that rather that Chris felt that was true. But Randy had convinced me that he didn't vote for me. And at the time, I was still believing him. So I was just in a complete mind fuck the entire time. It was bad. I've recovered since, mostly.
If I can add anything. So for Crystal, I was kind of disappointed because I have a history of also voting out people I get really close with. And Crystal and I had a Filipino relationship that I was excited to do stuff with.
Oh.
And
yeah, you and Crystal were pretty close.
Yeah, and she was already the option for that vote out of her being the target instead of Susie. And I think right before the votes, like the 5 minutes of chaos, I did tell Crystal to vote Susie because that was where I was just kind of throwing votes and still trying to decide in that mess of like, am I going to go for Susie or am I going to listen to the boys and vote out Crystal? And that might have been why she voted out Susie. Put that one vote on Susie. We'll never know since she's gone AWOL.
Yeah, she clearly had decided to flip over to your side. But by doing that, she ended up kicking herself out of the game.
Yeah. Karma. All right, well, let's move on to 15th place. I think this is a little low, but probably there's some reasoning behind it. In 15th place, we have Ron with 38.9% of the vote.
I think this is one of those cases where the ratings at the beginning of the season drastically affected the way that they placed in the final ranking. Because I'll be honest, the first couple rounds when the men weren't going to tribal, I think the majority of them were just like the bottom 10 votes.
Well, no, I think this is, I mean,
is this the cumulative?
No, this is just the last one. So,
oh, ignore me.
Yeah, I think that this was just frustration on some people's part. I will say, I also think a lot of these early boots got bolstered in the ratings. I think because they were so active in the lurking den, so that's part of it too. But also, I just think Ron was not popular with the lurkers because he was so sporadic with his gameplay. I found it highly entertaining, but again, we do have. I mean, I'm looking at all the people above him, and this is a hard ranking.
And every single one, you're like, this person's a little too low.
Yeah, true.
No, I disagree. There's some people who
Yeah, I think there are some people that were bolstered. We'll get to them. Ron, you were robbed of a little higher of a placement.
Well, I placed fourth, so
yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, so don't be upset.
Oh, I'm not. Why would I be upset? I will admit there was a huge learning curve for me for this entire experience, and if I had the chance to do it again, I would do it much differently. And I think like the biggest lesson for me was like how I managed through the social game. So I would do that a lot better, even though I had a lot of fun playing the role of the villain, even though sometimes I was very hesitant to fully embrace that role. And I think that's part of why you're seeing so much, seeing my gameplay as so sporadic is because I really was going between like, oh, I want to play a loyal game. And like, I actually do trust these people between like, oh, I want to stat like Reem and Michelle are a great example of like two people who I was like actively trying to get out of the game. But at the same time, I was like, wait, I think I trust them. So I want to keep working with them. So I think like the lurkers were feeling the same thing as the players, that I was kind of playing both sides, which I pretty much was. But I think that's how it got me where I was. But I would do a lot of things differently.
I would say I refer to you a lot as the Chaos Merchant this season.
I appreciate that.
Because you would come on and you did this very consistently, even up until the Final Four. You would make these crazy plays like right before the challenge without much time to like make a big play. And you would come on and you would throw out the most ridiculous target that you could possibly imagine in that round that no one was thinking of. And you would like push for that person really hard and to the point where no one would listen to you. So you'd just be like, you know what, guys, I think this is the round. We need to get out Michelle. And then, you know, like you would go on this tirade of trying to get out this person. And everyone was like, no, Ron, we're not doing that.
And so the only thing I will say to this is I felt the entire time like I felt like I was playing like a very like individual game. I felt like I didn't have like I've never had like a final 2 or final 3, like even up to like the final days, obviously. So I think like that speaks to like the problem of playing an individual game is you often sound crazy and isolated because you are. So yeah, I will own up to that.
I think actually that brings up a pretty good point that we had talked about in several of the earlier podcasts for people to listen. And this season was very famous for having like a lot of disenfranchised players that were never brought into the fold of these big alliances super closely. Like we saw it early with Lauren not being brought into the women, so she flipped to the men. And then we saw it again with you not being brought into the women, so you flipped to the men. Randy not being brought into the men, so we flipped back to the women. Same thing with Matty.
Yep.
And that just seemed to be a recurring theme of people not locking in the outer players, I guess you'd say, to the point where people were almost forced to flip on their alliances, you know?
Yeah, I mean, like even Charlie was someone who I thought I was like much closer to, but it became clear towards the end that was like not actually the case.
Right.
Yeah, so I would agree with that. That like I really had to your point, like I was doing a lot of my homework like last minute, like 15 minutes before the challenge. I was like, who we get now? Like, what's the move? And really try to position myself as like that swing vote. And sometimes it worked, and most of the time it just kept the target off my back. But I think it didn't really showcase how good I could actually be at this game. I think like the online component really threw me for a loop, and I had a lot of a really big learning curve to overcome personally.
Yeah, and Matty says he agrees because he had a similar problem. But we'll get to Matty when he comes up on the ranking.
Of course.
Well, let's move on to the next one. We love talking about you, Ron, but we have another 13 people to get through. 14 people.
Please move on.
So let's move on to 14th place. We have Ace with 40.55% of the vote. I think this is a good spot for Ace because I think he was gone too soon in terms of he's someone we expected to go deep and I was expecting Ace to be in the Matty position in the merge. And that's something, you know, like he found the idol early. He was really in the trenches with the men, but he was interested in working with like Crystal and really flipping back and forth. So that's something I feel like we didn't get to see. So he was definitely someone who I think went too soon. So this is pretty good placement for him. Any comments on Ace?
I loved his confessionals. I loved his cockiness. I wish we would have had it longer. But nothing beats a moment where somebody who is bragging about how great they're doing in the game gets blindsided. So for me, that was honestly one of the moments of the season. So
Aurora says Ace fucked up when he messaged me that way. Yeah, Ace, you talked a little bit in your exit interview about your message to Aurora just because.
Yeah, I still only recall messaging her, "You're gone," like 2 minutes before we went to tribal council, and I was like flabbergasted by how she took it. Like, what do you mean that was so? I mean, I did mess up. Wasn't like "You're gone, bitch." It's like "You're gone." A little bit nicer.
You're gone. I don't know. If you read it, you'd be like, "You're gone." I don't know.
And she didn't even get one vote that round. She was pissed for a long time.
How did you expect that to go over? Like, you're gone. Is that supposed to be taken in a positive way?
In Ace's world, that's very straightforward and honest.
I mean, you know, based off of how I took Susie's comment as sarcasm, it reflects on how well I know my English as a person.
Not enough emojis.
When you say how much you know your English, you're talking about being Filipino. Are you like, I mean, you sound like you're born in America, correct?
Yeah, I'm like half.
Okay.
So, yeah. And
do you speak Filipino?
A little bit. Not as much as when Crystal and I would speak or like type Tagalog to each other. Yeah. I was getting ready because if she lasted further in the game, it would have been like back and forth, and I was hoping to send messages in a different language to each other in like future tribal councils, but alas, she had to go.
Smart.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, Chelsea might want to get in on that action too, when Chelsea speaks. Would have just Google translated it. True. Chelsea was actually shocked by how well Google can translate things now.
I guess for like one final word, yeah. I think if Chris, Eric, and I survived past Randy's undoing of the men, this season would have been reflected pretty poorly over the course of time.
Yeah, but I don't know that y'all would have stuck together all the way, even still.
God,
no. But I got to thank you for the amazing blindside moment. Going out with an idol and saving Queen Susie in the same breath is pretty awesome.
I did really enjoy that. So thanks, Ace.
Yep. Hey, remember, this game's too easy, so.
Yeah. Yeah, all right, well, let's move on to the next placement. I think appropriately we have in 13th place Chris with 44.45% of the vote. Kind of in the same boat, but I think Chris was a much better character by virtue of how much we got from him and for how long he did. Really, look, when you do a men versus women season, you want the two, I'm talking, of course, about Eric and Ace, you want the two 80s villains that, say the most ridiculous shit possible in confessionals.
Yeah, I think Chris, again, this is just a factor of who the people lurking the season were really rooting for. I mean, he made a great villain for the season. Somebody who knew his best path to the end, knew how he was going to be able to win, and he just stuck to the fact that it was going to be the most boring season for us to watch if his Men's Strong Alliance really made it through. But I'm also biased and love the kid, so, I probably boosted his rating a little bit. So sorry, everybody.
We're no longer friends.
That's fine. Have fun without me.
I will say, I think Chris was actually, for as ridiculous as he was actually contender to win and was actually playing really well at the merge. And I think that's part of the frustration was it may not have been what we wanted as viewers, but he was doing what was best for his game. And he was pretty effective at it too. Unfortunately for him, he just was on the wrong side of history on this one. I was thinking Aurora was going to chime in there.
Yeah, no, honestly, Chris came to me after the Ace vote and kissed my ass so hard.
That was hilarious.
He's so good at that.
This is lovely. I would love someone to kiss my ass for the next 3 weeks. But honestly, the point where I realized he wasn't was the day I got voted out, and it was too late at that point. But
so he was good at it.
He had me. He had me till the very day I was voted out. Absolutely.
I will say you all should go back now that you can read to Chris's pre-merge confessionals, because you could see in the round before he was blindsided where he's like, "We're crushing all the women. They all suck. They're so stupid." And then immediately after that, he's like, "I don't know why they won't talk to me. I'm here to work with it." It's like the biggest 180. I think Lavita said it was like a study in how people talk when they're in power and not in power.
Yeah.
That was a funny moment. But let's move on to 12th place. We have Eric with 48.65% of the vote.
I can't believe this. Okay.
Ironic that Ace, Chris, and Eric went back to back here. I thought I think Eric's hilarious and also a pretty good player, all things considered. Of course, he was in the villain contingent this season, but I will say, I think his jury performance redeemed him a little bit. And also, I think he was just a really good player. He was great in the challenges. And also, he had something this season that a lot of people didn't have, which was just this unbelievable clarity. And, he would stick to his guns whenever he was like, "No, this is who we're voting off. Everybody should just get on board with this because this is how it should go," which I thought was really effective this season because everybody was so all over the place. So to have someone who was completely steady the whole time, I think benefited him a lot.
I'm going to disagree with you here. I kind of view Eric as the men's GILLIAN in a sense, where he would have his idea of who he wanted out. But the only reason he wasn't going anywhere is because Chris was doing all the scrambling behind the scenes, pulling together people like Lauren, pulling in Ron, trying to get Charlie.
I think that's off.
Yeah, that's wrong.
I don't. I think Eric is a good challenge competitor. I think he stuck to the names he wanted, but I think the only reason he didn't go at 12, 11, 10 is because Chris was working behind the scenes to get other people targeted because Chris didn't want to lose Eric.
That may be true, but I don't think he was following anyone, and I don't think he was out of the loop like Gillian was. No offense, Gillian. I think he was a big part of, I think Lauren could probably speak to this more, but Lauren had a really close bond. I'm going to unmute her because she asked me to.
Okay, well, while we wait for that, I hate him.
Oh, look, I think 100% he deserved the hatred he got because he said some crazy shit in confessionals.
But that's not what we all see as competitors, right? So he was actually on the bottom the day I got voted out, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not talking about you guys see. I'm talking about what I see. I don't like him.
I think a lot of that too was, I think we wanted him to be a bigger character than what he actually probably was.
No, I disagree. I think he was a big character. I just don't like him.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think Eric, you have your Susies and your Reams, but then you also have to have people like Eric and Chris to play off of that in the same way you would have a Rupert and a Johnny Fairplay, you know?
I mean, he was entertaining. He was very entertaining.
Right. I guess Lauren is having mic issues. Let's move on to 11th place. We have War Dog with 51.65% of the vote. And actually, I think he's tied for 10th place, looking at these numbers.
It's rigged. This is rigged.
These two decisions are, I think, too high. But I think because they were, and we'll reveal that the other placement is Jackie. We'll talk about both of them at the same time. But they were both our lurking king and queen because they were with us all pre-merge while we dissected the cast. And they were fantastic lurkers. I think that's a little high on this list. They were bolstered by that, but let's talk about War Dog first. War Dog, gone too soon, but also not. I feel like, he really misplayed that swap.
I don't know if he misplayed the swap, though. Like, I think his problem, and I mean, we've talked about this plenty of times, is that, the game is, you just have to assume everybody is playing as hard as they can at all times. And I think he really thought that the vote was going to be as simple as, oh, we all agree that we want Ron out, or we all agree that we want Marcus out. And I think he thought he was much closer with Charlie than he was. He thought he was much closer with Marcus than he was, and was willing to be complacent and just kind of see where the cards fell. And I don't think he necessarily misplayed anything. I just think he didn't play hard enough, if that makes sense. It's not like he made a bad choice. He just didn't make a choice. Does that make sense? Or am I just speaking out of my ass?
No, I get what you're saying. Like, I just also think he could have done more. I think that the entirety of the men's tribe went into that swap so underprepared compared to the women who were going a million miles an hour that his inaction caused him to be booted. So that's all I can really say about Ward, other than he was a fantastic lurker and would have been a crazy player this season, but not much to say else. All right, so looks like no one else has much to say about War Dog, so we'll move ahead to Jackie. I know you guys will have a lot to say about Jackie, considering her boot was discussed a majority of the merge. And really, that pre-swap women's tribe had so much gameplay going on, we could not keep up. Like, if you, I think Reem was asking me about something earlier today, and I was like, if you want me to remember anything about the women's, the early women's tribe, we're in trouble because there's so much going on. I'll open the floor to talk about Jackie now.
Okay, well, I guess I'll start off because I think I was in her original trio. It was me, her, and Crystal, and I looped in Julie, and it was a clusterfuck.
I love you, Rin.
She went 90 miles an hour and she had like 50 million ideas going on. She was playing super hard. And at the time, I thought she was super close to Crystal, a lot closer than myself. And she just needed to go for me to stand any sort of chance.
She should be here right now for this. But yeah.
What was that phrase you guys used? The Reem mist? Yeah, she got misted.
Yeah, she definitely was. You want to talk about too hard, too fast, and then she bitched at us because we encouraged that in the video preseason advice. Although I will say, I feel like any other season that probably would have worked, but you guys were so crazy that the first few votes that I think everybody was playing too hard, too fast. To be honest with you, so she got caught up in everyone telling that she was their closest ally, I think. And I don't think the ranking helped at all either.
Can you explain that at all? Ranking, the very first ranking.
In terms of what?
Why was Aurora at the bottom? Why was
Jack had this plan.
That was my favorite part of the whole season.
Yeah, you guys, and we had kind of hoped that would happen. So thank you for that. But you guys had kind of rigged the ranking.
I just totally lost on the internet. That's fine.
That was a cluster. The way that it played out. I mean, I thought Jack flipped and changed all sorts of stuff to put a target on my back. It was paranoia all over the place for me.
And we thought she must have a huge alliance in order to pull off such a feat. Oh, it was bad.
Yeah. So Jackie, I think, is someone who probably will grow with experience of learning to dial it back. Maybe not make an alliance with every single person on day one.
No.
You're one to talk, Green.
We appreciate everything she gave us there in those early days.
Yeah.
I think certainly made the women's tribe very entertaining. And Jackie was a replacement. I don't know if she told you guys or you guys knew, probably not, because she was replaced.
I didn't know.
Just from the podcast.
The day the season started. So,
Oh, wow.
she was someone that we were really hoping would get a shot because she was so eager about playing. But we had so many great female apps. I mean, I know 2 people fell through, including Victoria. We had a couple of other really great female apps that had applied that we'll hopefully get in future seasons. But Jackie really delivered for us when we were down a person. So that's Jackie. I think we should move on now to, that was 10th place, War Dog and Jackie tied. So now we're in our top 10. In 9th place, we have GILLIAN with 53.35% of the vote. I think this season is hugely impacted by GILLIAN. I mean, a huge character this season. I like to think it was, we kept going back and forth if you listen to the podcast on whether we couldn't stand her or whether we absolutely loved her. But I think either way, every time it was something entertaining. Even in the final 3, Michelle could attest to this. we have the logs and it's just GILLIAN berating Michelle and probably Charlie too, yelling at them of why they were lying the whole time.
It was just rapid fire, and it was about like tiny little things. It was just constant all day, 3 days.
GILLIAN is a constant source of entertainment. And like I said multiple times, like she really is a sweetheart, but she's just so full on that it's too much at some point.
I think GILLIAN is the perfect example of a player that no matter whether you hate her or you love her, everyone is always talking about her, which is, I mean, think of like a Nora in a season of Survivor,
exactly right.
Or like a Sugar, like Debbie. It's these people that are just, they're not going to win, but like that's the character you think of. That's the person other than the winner that you're just like, wow.
You had an idol?
They're wild. She was so entertaining.
Yeah, when she found the idol, that was hilarious.
Her old lady picture. That was so funny.
Right.
Oh,
there's so many good GILLIAN moments. I think it would take an entire podcast just to go over them all.
Need a HIPAA release for part of that.
Yeah, I think even post-season, she's been delivering the entertainment. I mean, and here's the thing, like, you got to appreciate someone who's so authentically them that they're just all the time. I feel like it's both the most endearing and annoying part all in one. I think that's why she's so polarizing, is that, there's no filter at all. So exactly what she's thinking, and she feels it so intensely that she's going to just talk about that all the time and never let it up until that feeling is completely out of her system. So
she must have like no residual stress because of that.
True.
She gets it all out.
True. And she's pretty good about moving on after the fact.
Yeah. I'm surprised she's not online.
That being said, I would not have wanted to play a game with her. Like, I loved watching her and I love her as a person, but playing a game with her was probably maddening for a lot lot of people.
It was fantastic. What are you talking about? It wasn't us wanting to bash our head into a wall at all.
It was fine.
As somebody who was debatably one of her closer allies, it was absolutely exhausting playing with her.
Yeah, Reem, I think, had it the worst trying to corral her into the plan.
Oh my God. I felt like her counselor.
True.
You were, but I think the other point is like how much you invest in that. Like, I wanted her out just because of the mental, emotional investment in round. No one else seemed to think that was relevant, but I said that in my confessional.
Well, then, as it turns out, she's played a lot of games, and this is comfortable for her.
I think Aurora hit the nail on the head. You know, there was two thoughts with Gillian. One thought was like, she'll be a great person to sit against at the end, which may be true, but I don't know if you can necessarily, unless you were Susie, one of her like number one allies, really rely on her vote for that long. Or if you did, it was going to be a Reem situation where you really had to work for that vote. It was going to cost you that spot that you were going to try to drag her to the end with.
I listened to the podcast, and you guys were pretty sure that keeping her past like 5 or 6 was a terrible idea. Do you still feel that way?
They thought keeping her past like 18 was a bad idea.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Well, we definitely think that's a bad idea because once you keep her past 18, she was almost guaranteed final 3. And
Yeah.
in that situation, sure, she's not going to win, but you also have to think who's going to be sitting up there with her. And I think people don't consider that. And like Levita said, she's eliminating one of the final 3 spots because she's guaranteed to get there. And it might not be with you. And people don't consider that when they're looking at goats, is that everyone wants to sit there with them in the end, of course. So at that point, it becomes who's the next least threatening. And if you're not that person, you're probably not sitting in the end with her.
Yeah, that's true. It really only made sense for Reem and I to do that.
There was also a perception that Jillian had like guaranteed jury votes. Like that's what when I don't remember when that started. But like no, I'm dead serious. That was like
the rumor mill.
Maybe that was me and Chris just being delusional, but that was definitely
Maybe
discussed,
that's
and we
what
were
it
like,
was.
yeah. Thanks.
That sounds like delusion, yeah.
Can I ask if it was Charlie, because this was said, I think Matty and some others said that they would actually consider voting for Jillian just out of spite. If it was Jillian, Ron, and Charlie in the final 3, does Jillian get anyone's vote on the jury?
No.
Ron
No,
gets
so that
it
was-
before that.
That was pure conjecture, I guess.
Yeah.
Now replace Ron with me, and we have a different story.
That's true.
Good job of fact checking there, Poody.
Anyway, Jillian doesn't win. You're all wrong.
No,
I think Charlie would have destroyed me in that final tribal council.
I think so too. I think Charlie would have gotten the votes.
He had that story down, and I think I would have gotten called out for what you're describing, the sporadic gameplay, whereas I think, Charlie would have walked away with it, I think. As much as I'd like to think that I would have, I don't think that would happen.
Charlie took the wrong person to the final. That's the story.
Yeah, I agree. I think more so than just that, I think he had better bonds with a lot of the jurors.
He did.
That would have benefited him. So let's move on to the next person, although we could talk indefinitely about Jillian. Let's move on to 8th place. We have Matty with 57.8% of the vote.
Oh, Matty.
Matty, we love Matty. It was interesting. Matty's definitely a case. Devens was upset that we sent him that message, but I could tell Devens, and I did tell him, that we had copied and pasted this message to Devens directly from Matty's confessional, where we told Matty, look, you really need to step up the activity or we're going to have to remove you, basically giving him the opportunity to turn the game around. And from that point forward, this was pre-merge, post-swap. Matty really stepped up into, I think, one of the better players this season, or at least more influential players. And I think there was 2 ways you could take that. I think Devens took it personally to his detriment in the game, whereas I think Matty took it as a challenge, which is kind of what we had hoped in Devens' case. So Matty, I got to commend him for being able to do a 180 on that, but also I think one of the top characters this season, just by virtue of his flip-flopping.
Yeah, Matty fucked.
Go ahead, Aurora.
No, that was my whole comment. Matty.
He fucked your game up.
Yeah, no, he did. I believed him, and that was my total downfall. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can agree with that. Like, I don't know. I think the first few days really sunk for me. If I was active the first few days, I feel like you guys would have gotten to know me a bit more. Because, like, even in my last few days, I was just starting to, like, message you and, like, ask questions and stuff, which I wasn't sure I could do before that. I don't know if you actually got, like, the full experience.
Are you talking to me?
Oh, no, just the host.
Perfect.
No, I think...
I love you, too.
I love you, Aurora. I love you.
I think the entire men's tribe had that problem. Because you guys won all the challenges, there was an activity drop. Whereas the women were all 9 talking that in first whole week bonding, and we really got to know them well. Whereas when the swap rolled around, we didn't know any of the men really. We didn't know how they would play. They weren't active almost at all, besides a few. So I think that also probably gave you guys a false sense of what to expect in the game.
Yeah.
So, I think going forward, we'll take that lesson on board of a way we can force both tribes to probably go to council early on would be ideal. But, here we are. I think that enabled you to become a great player, having started off slower and getting that wake-up call kind of shocked you into the game pretty hard.
Yeah, I do agree. And that little twist at the swap where I was the only person not picked and I got to talk to everyone. I mean, that was kind of my downfall because I got close to a lot of people on both sides. which ended up screwing me over. But it did like help me make connections, and I was able to like kind of control the first few votes, if you could say that.
It only screwed you over when you decided to do it. Like, you had total power.
Yeah.
And then you threw it in the trash.
Yeah, a little bit.
You didn't pick a side soon enough.
Yeah.
I know, that's my biggest regret.
I do think it was a mistake for them to get rid of you, though. I will say that.
I agree, but Michelle did win, so I can't really say it was the biggest mistake.
Not for her, mostly for Reem.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
in hindsight, I should have stuck with him. I couldn't get the best read on him because he was playing everybody and he was telling everybody almost the exact same thing. So I was like, okay, he's got to go because he's unpredictable.
Plus, the way he got in Aurora's ear right before that vote really freaked us out
Oh,
because
yeah.
he totally started a whole thing. So that's when I realized that he was a huge threat.
That was my entire downfall.
That's when the plan.
And I'll be completely honest, when he booted out Susie, like he was going to be gone. I couldn't anymore. I was so pissed when she got booted.
He was on everyone's shit list, yeah.
God, I was so pissed.
Everybody loves Susie.
I know. I love Susie, but she didn't talk to me much after the merge, so I just didn't know how to feel about her. Like, if she talked to me a bit more, I feel like we could have gone after, like, Michelle, maybe, or...
We were getting negative intel.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. You know, over at New Taraku, I had every intention of voting out Michelle. And all the guys decided not to be online with the exception of you when you joined our team. And I was like, I can't even work with these people because they can't even be online properly. So
Yeah, and at that point, I didn't want to work with any of the guys. Like, I wanted War Dog out. I wanted Marcus out, which was probably a bad call because I think Marcus would have stuck with me.
Yeah, the main thing that bonded me and Reem together was complaining about the guys, so.
You guys were the worst. Oh my God.
And you had, like, because the women went into that with two alliances that were split. We had Reem and GILLIAN together, and then they had Michelle and Lauren together. But the guys were so bad that they called like a ceasefire just to get rid of us. They were like, well, shit, if they're going to not even show up, we might as well get rid of them, you know?
I think that's something you shouldn't like take lightly in the fact that like we went into the swap. My tribe was down and the other tribe was even, and we came out of it in a way better spot. I think that's...
And you guys were splintered because you had just gotten it through that council with Jackie.
Yeah.
Decided to be together. I think that's awesome.
We had a huge makeup session that took days.
I love you, Susie.
Me too.
All right, so let's move on from Matty to 7th place. We have Aurora with 63% of the vote.
I'm surprised, but okay.
I expected Aurora to be a bit higher, but that's just me.
We are top 7, so...
Yeah, we're getting down to it.
Yes, bitches.
I think the perfect merge boot. I mean, I don't count Marcus as the merge boot. I think perfect first juror. Let's put it that way.
I appreciate that. Honestly, I think that's a good spot for me.
Yeah, I mean, we knew it was either going to be, it was going to be someone big as the first juror spot. If it wasn't going to be you, it was probably going to be Reem, or it was going to be like Eric or Chris. So, whoever that first jury boot was going to be impactful. So, but I do think, of the choices, you were a good jury foreman.
Sure.
I think Aurora going to the jury was one of my biggest concerns because she had just confronted me, and we did reconnect over that weekend before Reem Aurora Geddon happened, but she caught me in so many lies and called me out on them, and I was like, oh my God, she's going to the jury, she's going to tell so many truths, like, oh my God.
I wasn't like this.
Or what was your experience like on the jury, getting to meet all these people that you previously had beef with?
I think that the beef in the game is totally different than beef in real life, right? So I thought it was really cool to talk to people outside of the game, and that's where I really felt like I got to know them.
I think that's the best. I always tell people, look, juries, as much as it sucks to be out, and in some cases close to the end, it's the most cathartic experience because you get to get out all of your aggression. You come together as a group to pick apart the people that beat you in the game, which is nasty for them, I'm sure. The Final Three doesn't appreciate it, but screw those guys, they were winning. So, it puts the whole season into perspective. You get to know the people that come. You get a little camaraderie just by all being losers together. So, you get to point your vitriol at someone else.
And ask our endless questions.
No, I think that was the best part of my game, and the worst part, honestly, to be frank. yeah, no, I loved like welcoming everybody into this space and like talking to them. And at the same time, like I had some of the hardest moments. I've had the hardest moments of the game in that same space. So it was a very, very strange experience for me. But at the same time, I loved it. I wouldn't change it for a second. And I think that really made my stranded experience. So thanks for, having me on for that part.
I was going to say, I think you just summed up Stranded in a nutshell. It's like, It's hard. It's parts of it are ugly. Parts of it are, they're hard to go through, but that's part of the experience. It's worth it because it's hard. If it was easy, it wouldn't be fun.
My sleep schedule was all fucked up from it.
That's for sure. I think I stayed up till 3 a.m. last night and got up at 10.
I definitely didn't go to class today, so that was super cool.
Yeah. All right, well, let's move on to sixth place. We have our runner-up this season, Charlie, with 71% of the votes.
I think he should be up higher.
And we said that for everybody. Not everybody can be up higher. No, I think Charlie's super likable. I think we've always said that. Like that's his defining feature. Not a terrible strategist, but above everything else, like just really likable. Like he's someone that, we stand a villain. We love our Reams, we love our Chris's and Eric's, but I think it's almost rare to find someone who is really just a truly nice person. Not that everyone else isn't, but there are these people that you just know, like there's not a bad bone in their bodies. And I think that's Charlie this season. And we knew that going in, but really throughout the whole season, he kept that part of him.
I especially love that even when he took a week off to go to Mexico and was just kind of sporadically checking in, he still gave us like our favorite sound bites of the week. Like he was just hilarious. He was
he just said,
fun. He was nice.
He came back. I think the favorite line, and we'll have to find the quote, but it was something like, yeah, I just got back from Mexico. I'm drunk and my butt hurts or something like that. I'm like, all right. Like somebody had too much fun in Mexico, I see, which I'm not sure if that was from the spicy food or something else, but
we didn't really want to know.
I think it was something else.
I don't think a single one of us are arguing that it was something else.
I think it was something else.
Pretty sure nobody asked.
Hilarious either way.
No, hilarious one way.
Yeah, true.
Oh.
But really, I think I expected Charlie I thought it was going to be a close vote at the end, and I think that would have been deserved too. But Charlie and Michelle had very similar games, different but similar in that they were both under the radar and had good connections with a lot of people. I think Charlie had better connections, but didn't play as good of a game as Michelle did. But you could say that playing the social game is a component. So certainly if Charlie had won, he would have been a good winner. And I think for sure deserved his placement second place.
I feel like his game might have not translated the best to us on the jury. I don't know. It feels like a lot of the things he said in Final Tribal Council made it seem like he thought he was closer to us than we actually were to him. I think Reem pointed that out, how like GILLIAN and Charlie kept saying her name, but like they weren't that close. And like honestly, I didn't really feel like I was that close to Charlie. Like I didn't really see him playing the most aggressive game, which made me vote for Michelle in the end. But
I'll second Maddie's statement, and I think Maddie said this on Ponderosa, but there were times when we would count votes, and this was like Maddie and myself or Michelle and I would forget Charlie like existed.
Yeah.
Apparently he loved me a lot more than I loved him.
I think Charlie's thing was he did
you
so
a
well
villain.
because he had like a different relationship with everyone in the game based on like their personality and how they were, but he like wouldn't focus on that during Final Tribal Council, and he kept trying to like talk about his strategy, and I think if he had just focused on that, he would have done better.
Yeah, I think
I agree.
reading through Ponderosa, I realized how much Final Tribal Council and all the questions like came into play. At least like reading through the answers had a big part, had a lot to do with the result. Does that sound?
Well, let's go ahead and awkwardly transition to the next the next placement. In fifth place, we have Lauren with 78% of the vote. I think Lauren was definitely a favorite for a lot of people, specifically Ziggy. You were his favorite for sure.
And then I voted out Susie.
No, I think for you that was a good move. I think most people had a problem with you jumping ship on the women, but I think that they kind of forced your hand on that one. I want to ask, while we have both of you here, what happened with you and Michelle in the early merge?
I think it was just like when she voted for Aurora with like Reem and those guys and didn't like even tell me like that was a thing or that was happening, I was kind of like, I don't think I can trust you anymore. And so we just kind of like, I don't know, drifted.
For me, it sort of started, I felt like I sort of started drifting apart from you a little bit after the swap because it seemed like you were online less. And it honestly just had to do with Reem and I being on all the time. So we just started talking a lot more. And that sort of moved into the merge.
I think had Michelle and I not bonded, you guys probably would have made it a lot farther. Well, Michelle won, but you would have made it a lot farther. The gameplay would have been completely different. Sorry, I weaseled myself in. I love Michelle, though.
I don't even know if that would have been the case, though, because me, Michelle, and Aurora were already like a strong 3, and people definitely were like onto that. So I think like if we hadn't like split up in the early merge like that, I mean, like I at least probably wouldn't have lasted as long as I did. I think it was good for both of our games, technically.
Yeah. I think that, like, looking back now, I should have included you in that, as it would have been a good way to, like, keep my relationship long. And I think you're, like, such a logical player that I think you would have seen the logic in it. But it was just, it all happened so quickly.
Aurora, did you have something?
Oh, no, I was just going to, I guess I felt like podcasts, the hosts missed the fact that Lauren and Michelle and I were like pretty tight.
Oh, yeah, you guys were, especially from early days. You were in with those two. But then they spent, I think more so, those two spent time together on New Taraku, I think was why it was shocking that they split up in the merge.
Yeah, I know, I totally agree about that. But I was totally 100% Michelle when we got back together, and you know that wasn't the right choice for me, but that was my alliance like from day one.
So when those two split, you're saying like you had to choose between which side you were going to go with?
No, we were all together in my head. It was honestly, so MATTY came to me with this, baloney lie, and then Lauren is the one who got the votes together. I mentioned to her what was going on, and she had the connections with the guys that I didn't.
Well, they were frustrating me because like they kept saying like, oh yeah, we'd be down for that, but then they wouldn't come up with the numbers or like give me names, and I was like, screw it, I'll do it myself.
Yeah, no. So and then at that point I thought it was either me or Reem. So that's where I went, and the only thing I didn't bet on was that Michelle was going to flip. So
yeah, I think interesting that again someone on the outside didn't get enough solid information, that being Lauren, but she did get a lot of information from the men. Lauren, can you talk about, because you bonded with Chris and Eric pretty closely.
Yeah.
More so than most people in the game. You and Eric had a pretty good relationship as far as strategy goes.
Yeah, like, I don't know, like everyone didn't like really get along with Eric, and I think it was just, not that they couldn't get along with him, but his personality is like very blunt, kind of, I guess. He's definitely not as chatty as everyone else. And so I knew he was like close with Chris and the guys. And I was like, well, if I have like a shot at like getting in with them, I probably have to also get in with Eric. Like they're not going to like want to align with me if Eric absolutely hates me, especially if they're super tight. So I kind of made it my goal to like talk to him as much as possible and try and see what I could get out of him. And eventually I broke through. I think it was basically when we started talking about like Netflix shows and we started talking about like Ted Bundy. But
oh yeah, that conversation was hilarious with you, Lauren.
You bonded over serial killers?
Of course, that's how you got through to Eric.
This is where it went wrong, guys.
Of course, you had the bond with the serial killer by talking about serial killers.
I think that's awesome, though. I think it was frustrating for us because we wanted to see the women succeed, but I could certainly understand. I think we all knew why you did it and why it made sense for your game, because you weren't getting like those solid final 2 deals from the women, but certainly the men were giving you. I mean, I think Chris had you in his final 3. I think so did Eric.
Yeah, actually, I was really surprised because Chris, I never thought that he was like so anti-woman, and that kind of like really shocked me. But then I guess reading his confessionals, he did actually feel really close with me, even though most of the time I was working with him, I was just kind of trying to use him.
Well, that's good for his ass. No, I think I think
about how you really feel, though. Like,
I think they considered you one of the guys at that point. Like when you switched over, that was it.
Yeah, I think they did.
And I always thought about it as like these chats are wild. I always thought of it like, you and Michelle were like high school buddies, and then when you guys went to college, it just fell apart, like through no fault of anybody's. It's just like the connection wasn't there after that, which I think we loved watching you guys' friendship and snarkiness throughout the whole season. So like when y'all split up, we were a little bit disappointed to see that happen. But anyway, let's move on to our top 4. We're getting down to it. So in 4th place, we have Randy with 82.8% of the votes. Star this season. Congrats, Randy.
Up, Randy.
More than anyone, I mean, I know everyone was immersed in this experience, but I think Randy, this was like, he was loving the experience and had a passion for it more than most people, just by virtue of his crying video confessionals. We have it on tape, Randy. You can we have you crying on tape. No, but I said this in the podcast, but for me, I put effort into this because I mean it's fun to watch, but also like it's super rewarding when people enjoy it to that extent. Like that kind of makes it all worthwhile. All the bullshit that we put up with, not from you guys, but it's a lot of work, but that certainly makes it worthwhile. So to see someone appreciate it that much was rewarding, but also it's super. I want to say game well played. I don't know if that's it. I think it's more like you really went all in on the game, and that was entertaining as hell. So well-deserved fan favorite placement.
He was doing very well until about, I'd say, Ream's boot. Ream's boot was where his game kind of fell apart, and he went off the rails.
Ream's boot? We're talking about 9? Shit, it went down the second I voted up Susie. What the fuck's wrong with you?
Well,
There is that.
So
hi, let's all calm down and just be friends.
It's Randy. Him and Gillian should just get into a screaming channel together.
No, I know I'm bad, but I'm not that bad. Jesus Christ.
I don't know.
worse.
Fun to find out.
So Randy, when you got sent home, like that's one thing I did feel really bad about when I told you I wasn't going to vote for you. And I just wanted to say that if it had been up to me, like you wouldn't have gone home then. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but that actually was like Charlie's thing. He really wanted you to go because you were such a threat in comp.
I win one comp after winning after so long, and all of a sudden I'm a threat.
But yeah, like when I told you that I wasn't voting you, I actually really meant that, and I felt bad that it turned into a lie then. So I'm
like, my thing with that is I don't even think it's necessarily wrong to vote me then, because you already had a tight group, and at that point it's just trying to make sure it keeps majority. So I don't know if it was necessarily the wrong thing to do there anyways.
It wasn't. I didn't care that much about it because like I had final 3 that I wanted to make it to the end, but I think I still would have gotten rid of you.
I mean, I just have to say, like, involving this game, this was an absolute fucking blast. I enjoyed every single minute of it, including when Matty called me a high schooler. That was fun, too.
I think that was a great moment.
Oh my god, Matty, we glossed over that, but your final tribal council where you were voted off was amazing.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I was like, I'm not gonna not go out fighting. Like, I just wanted to make the biggest scene possible because I knew I was going to leave anyways, and I thought I'd throw it as much as I could, and I think I kind of helped screw Reem over, which was a little bit of my intention.
I think you might have screwed Randy over too. During that,
I mean, I think he wanted to do that real bad, so I
don't
think that
absolutely.
was not intention.
I think Matty screwed a lot of people over in that final tribal.
But I think I've smoothed it over, right? Like, we're good.
Yes, we're the best mother-son duo.
Randy,
Absolutely.
It's a good thing you're in Canada, Matty.
I'm sure.
No, but Randy, we appreciate you and how much you really put into it, and really everybody. But I could tell it was the game was very emotional for you. I think Michelle also said it was emotional for her towards the end. But man, it's just, the more you put into this, the more you get out of it. I'm a firm believer of that. And I think a lot of you guys went all in on it. And that's why the season was so great. So thank everybody for that.
One last thing I do want to say is the round I go, I did break down again, but it was for the dumbest fucking reason. And it was not because everyone was crapping on me in the jury. That's a normal thing for me. That happens a lot. It was when there was one person who wasn't in Devens. That's why I broke, because there was someone rooting for me.
I think I know I would have liked to have you in the final three, but I really think it was appropriate that you were in jury because it gave you the chance to breathe and be like, okay, it is just a game. Like, people are just hating on the game I'm playing, not me as a person. Whereas I think in the final three, it could have gotten real ugly. You sitting there and everyone's shitting on you the whole time.
If I made the final three, I don't think any of the people would like me after this.
No, I could safely say I think everyone likes you. I think everyone likes everyone. I think, we just like being entertained and we like commenting on it. And I think people in the game, they take it out on each other, but I don't think it's personal for anybody. Maybe some people, but for the most part. Okay, so let's move on to our top three. We're in third place. We have our winner this season, Michelle, with 88% of the vote.
Queen.
I think justified. I think the season, we didn't expect a good winner this season because it was such a great season, and usually great seasons don't have great winners. But truly, I think you were a great winner. I think you played a great game. But also, I think just from an entertainment perspective, your confessionals are legendary.
Thanks.
I mean, truly hilarious. Like, if you guys have not read her confessionals yet, you need to go and read them immediately because they were so funny. She'll probably tell you not to, though, because they were pretty, they were pretty bitchy, but that's okay. We love that here.
Yeah, I was definitely... I definitely stopped doing as many confessionals towards the end of the game. I wish I had that up more.
I think the biggest part of what you did well in the game that people may not even realize was that you were so perceptive of what was going on. And that's that's an ability it's hard to do online because of not being able to read people's facial expressions or see what people are doing. But it's also just an innate ability that some people have. I've seen it several times in the game. It's rare. And I think you're one of the people that is able to look at a situation and see exactly how things are shaking out. And I think we saw that almost immediately in early Atlasova, where you were able to suss out like the exact 5-person majority alliance. And in the merge, it helps you all the time being able to see who was on the bottom, who you needed to work with, who you needed to cut. I think that's a big part of why you were successful.
Can I just say that I thought the most impressive person to me, I guess before I got booted, really was Michelle. Like, I really thought that she said some things and did some things before the merge. Before the swap that like fucking impressed me. It was really awesome to talk to her and to be a part of her connection, because she really did an awesome job.
Thanks.
Yeah, kudos.
Now, I think one of the coolest things that Michelle did, which obviously was to my detriment, but was partnering with me. And when I lost Susie, I said it before, but Susie was like my equalizer. Michelle and I sort of had like this Bonnie and Clyde thing going on where we were partners in crime with like everything. And between she and I, we were able to basically play the entire field and gather all this information. And that gameplay, that social and strategic gameplay that she had was just unparalleled.
I think, she was definitely the devil on your shoulder, with Susie was the angel on your shoulder. But I have to say, that night after, I guess it was after Susie left, or maybe it was someone else, but there was a point where you guys were just shitting all over Maddie, and you guys were creating like a million group chats titled like Maddie's secret group is Love Alliance number 1.
I only created one of them. Michelle gets all that credit. She came to me and was like, I'm thinking about doing this, because she almost did it to me back on old Atlasova. And I was like, do it. It just spread chaos.
That was the time I left. So that was after the Devens vote.
After Devens,
I noticed you weren't there.
I think that also attributed to Maddie's spiral into chaos at that council.
Honestly, I thought it was kind of funny. Like, I didn't even see a problem with it, really. I was like, is anyone that stupid to think that it's me? I just didn't really see a point in it. I guess it helped Michelle, but it's because I didn't think it was Michelle. So, like...
Who did you thought it was... Eric?
I thought it was Randy.
Randy.
Funnily enough, I thought it was Maddie, so I am that much of an idiot.
Yeah. Oh well. I mean, like, I don't think it was like part of why I was like crazy at Tribal Council. I think the reason why is just because Ron told me I was leaving. Who else? Like Lauren said I was going. Chris, Eric, Randy, like they all said that I was getting the votes. So like I knew at that point, let me throw out as much information as I can and hope that people grab onto it. I mean, no one did.
And Michelle, you also found the extra vote.
Yeah.
The
And I
cowboy.
don't know about that at all. So can you tell me about it?
I'm trying to remember right after the challenge, before you left, Eric won that, right?
Yes.
Right after that, Jeff posted the clue saying, you might find something to help you on a hat or something. And I knew exactly what he was talking about because me and GILLIAN were the only ones who had posted in this one thread. And that was the thread that I had noticed a bunch of times before because it was so weird. But I went back right away and clicked on it, and then the vote was looking so close, and it was between you and Reem Aurora. And I used both my votes against you because, well, I feel like I've already explained.
You did? Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't end up being
Wait,
why you left, but
No.
but
You
that's
didn't
why
know
there were
that?
14 votes, I think, that counselors instead of 13.
No, not the extra vote, but her decision to vote me was.
Yeah. Well, basically, if you would have stayed and I had voted like against you, it would have been really, really bad. So my thinking was, if I'm going to do this, I have to double down. And that's what I did.
Yeah, I think I've said this in my confessionals / to directly. You did the right thing. Like, you did the most strategic thing, and I respect it, and that's why I voted for you to win. So it's all good.
Yeah, I don't even know if a lot of people knew that there was an extra vote that happened. Like, and I think it was impressive that like you found that vote and you were willing to play it that early to save Reem. Because I don't think a lot of people would have had the balls to do that, like to immediately just play it.
Yeah. There was a choice. I could have chosen to use it as an extra vote or let it sit and have it become a steal a vote, but I wasn't allowed to. I had to convince someone to give up their vote, and I just didn't think that I'd be able to pull that off. So I don't like to hang on to advantages, and it turns out I didn't need to, but I don't feel bad about it.
No, I think go ahead, Novo.
If no one knows what we're talking about, if you remember, there was a week or so that Poody kept posting a cowboy hat emoji in the tree mail. There was an advantage hidden in that. And if you would have clicked the emote, you would have seen to post an image in your confessional and you would have won an advantage. And he hid that every single day for a week and no one found it.
Wow.
Well, you see, we're all idiots.
Until I said something like the cowboy might help you in the game or something like that.
Ugh.
That fucking cowboy can die in a hole. How about that shit?
All right, so let's as much as we could talk about Michelle forever, let's move on to finding out who won. I think since it's a top two, and it's between Reem and Susie, we'll announce the winner now. So I can reveal that with 93.35% of the vote, Susie is our fan favorite this season.
Oh, wow.
No
Thanks,
big shock
guys.
there.
Go, Susie.
But
Yes.
It was a shock to me. I thought it would be Reem for sure.
super close vote. At one point it was
Oh,
tied.
Sure it was.
But Reem, you got 92.8% of the vote. So very close vote.
She deserves this. I love her so much.
I
Her and
love you too,
Michelle,
sister.
like I think it's pretty obvious. I stand both of them all the time. So I love her.
Both worthy for sure. It was that's a
Seven's heart big enough for the both of us, I'm sure.
We talked about this preseason. Like, it's hard. You guys are such rare finds for us. Like, when we look for players, like, you guys are slam dunks in casting, as well as a lot of the cast. But in particular, you two really played the game well and it exceeded our expectations. So I think, as a viewer, we were torn on who we thought was fan favorite, but it came down to a very close vote. But I think, ultimately, Susie's just so lovable. I mean, he got that little extra percentage of the fan favorite vote. Let's take that for what it's worth. But you guys were both super awesome, very difficult finds, and we were very thrilled that you guys were allowed to participate.
Yeah, well, it was super fun.
I was actually talking to Susie earlier today. I thought it was super weird because this was not my active Reddit account. My other one I lost access to. And all I made was like one post on this account. And then you contacted me and I was like, all right, sure.
And my post was on a Big Brother sub, not even about Survivor, although I think I made some Survivor reference that I was talking about Big Brother.
Yeah, a lot of times it's just kismet, you know. Sometimes people, it's their first post on Reddit. We just find them by chance. And little do they know they'll be giving up a month of their life and possibly more afterwards.
I just wanted to say, I really made an amazing number of relationships just, in a month's time. And that's not a very common occurrence for me. And meanwhile, trying to figure out the technology of all of this and realizing, at the end of the day, it's about people. People are behind all of these computers and phones. And I just felt that. And so even if you didn't like me, and I've read your confessionals, I know who you are. I enjoyed meeting all of you.
Yeah, I think it's a super unique experience. And I think, I always tell people that ahead of time, and you really don't understand it until you're in it, but you really do get bonded with people very closely. And it is real. Sure, we're all pretending to be these characters on a TV show on air. It sounds ridiculous, but these bonds, they really form. And I can say, I've made really close friendships of people that I talk to every day, and I don't talk to some of my closest friends in real life every day. So even more so outside of the game, you can become close to people, but going through Stranded is hard. So when you do find a close friend in it, those bonds can last a long time. But I thought you two played a fantastic game. I think when we look back on this season, definitely you two will be who we remember among everyone else, but especially you two. I think you guys killed it this season. So well-deserved high placements.
I'm thrilled to share this with Reem, of all people.
I was number 2. You deserve that number 1 spot. But I'll say aligning with her.
You were number 1.1.
I love you. No, I love you. No.
I stand Susie. I said it before, but when we swapped and, Maddie had brought up to throw the challenge and her name was being brought up, I was like, yes. No, I'm going to protect Susie, And I was like, oh, shit. She roped me in. Oh, crap. And I'm very grateful to have aligned with her. And I'm grateful to have been able to connect with her after this. She's a cool lady. I love her.
No, for real.
Very cool.
Poody, my only comment is make sure you cast them both again because I'll watch.
I think we're all looking forward to seeing a lot of you guys again, and I'm sure we will in the near future. But let's go ahead and shift quickly onto the player of the season. I can reveal the top 5 vote getters, let's say in alphabetical order. They were Aurora, Charlie, Lauren, Reem, and Susie.
Oh.
Of course, this award is voted on by you guys to each other, so that's why this one is special.
Oh.
Michelle was not in contention for this because she did win the season, so she's already the player of the season. But I can reveal that the winner for player of the season was Susie as well.
Oh my!
So
goodness.
Good job, Susie.
Woo!
Close second.
Yes, Susie.
Close second again was Reem.
Wow.
Followed by Charlie, then Aurora, then Lauren. And I will say that this shifted a lot as these votes were coming in. So
I'm gonna faint for real.
Kudos to everyone this season. You guys killed it.
It was a blast. I really had so much fun. I didn't have the time. I'm trying to run a business here, but I'm glad I made the time. I'm glad I got to know all of you and learned a little bit more about technology, a tiny bit about math, and a lot about the Kuril Islands. Way too much.
Yeah.
Oh man, so much.
The next pub trivia night that everyone goes to, and this comes up as a questionnaire. Everyone's gonna know the answer. Yeah.
And the Russian words too.
So we do have one final award to give out, and this is a very special award. This is the second time we're giving it out. Back in August, a former winner of ours and very valued member of our community sadly passed away, and he was only 33. So it was shocking for all of us. It was truly, the community is fairly new, so for us, we all get super close, as you know, in Stranded. So it was pretty devastating for us. So we decided to, in his honor, as a winner, he was super crazy. It was basically like Reem won a season, if you can imagine, when Jake won his season. So he was way over the top, very into the villainy and everything else. So when we decided to dedicate an award to him, the Valentine Award, we decided to give it to the player that we love to hate the most. And of course, in Stranded and with Jake, he was also big into horror and he was big into villains. So he had a sixth sense of humor. So we thought how appropriate for Stranded to give an award for a villain. And last season, the first recipient was a good friend of Jake's, Nofo, when he played an all-star season. Nofo, we're going to hand over to you because you get to hand over to the next recipient of this award. So go ahead.
I just want to say this person was probably one of the biggest characters this season and was, even though they irritated me for a bit at the end, it was still so fun to watch them play. And I'm excited to see what they'll do in the future in Stranded. And this award is going to go to Reem.
Oh, shit.
Yay!
So congrats, Reem.
Did I get this for being love to hate or for being a villain, or I'll take all of the
all
above.
of it.
Yes.
All of the above. It's
villain hero.
Yeah, exactly. It's the villain that we love to root for.
Nice.
I think so appropriate. I think you and Jake are similar in a lot of ways, like I said. So
I would say it goes to the player who plays an over to the top game with a negative flair.
a little tinge of duplicity involved.
It's the
Just a touch.
I did call it in my application. There were warnings given all throughout. I don't know why people trusted me and gave me information.
And you were our first interview. You were like a slam dunk too. We were like, she's definitely in.
Yeah, I watched the podcast for the women's season, and you guys read mine, and I was like, oh dear, they're applauding me. That's cute. Okay.
Yeah, I think I even said in that, like, yeah, that's really sweet, but let's not get over the past that she's going to play this game very hard. I think well deserved. And I want to say all these awards were like super close because we had a ton of people, and I'm supposed to make a cover, which I guess I'll do for tomorrow, where I pick the 7 players that represent the season the best. But it's very difficult. We're still debating on who deserves what spot because this cast was so great. And I know I say that most casts are pretty good because we vet the people really well, but you guys delivered. I mean, most casts do not deliver like you guys did. So kudos to everyone involved.
You sure we didn't deliver just a little too much, Poody?
Never enough, I think. No, I mean, I even the pre-merge people are awesome. So I think when we go over in the coming month, I think we're supposed to do a season ranking. I think you're going to see this season rank pretty high on that list. So
Cool.
Thank you guys for entertaining us. I know this is not an easy experience. I know it takes a lot of dedication and a lot of lowering of grades or poor shop running. I'm sure it was not on your best game, but hopefully it was worth it for you guys. I think it was certainly worth it for us.
That was a blast. Congrats, Michelle.
Thank you.
We'll be handing out some checks. We got Michelle's getting her check for the winning $100.
Like half an electric.
Baby needs a new pair of shoes.
Yeah. And then
I don't
fan
even
favorite
get myself $100 pair of shoes. So
fan favorite does get $25. So Susie, you've got that.
Wow!
Nice.
I won it. So
buy some scratch offs or something.
Yeah. I'll leverage it. I think we
Yeah.
have at least one investment banker in here.
Oh,
Hey, thanks everybody. Awesome season. Really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
I had to jump, but just wanted to say thank you. I had so much fun, and this is not something I ever expected to do, but I had a blast. So thanks to the host, and thanks for everyone for playing. I had a great time.
love you, Ron.
Oh, love you all, even if you didn't love me. It's cool.
all love.
All love. All right.
All right,
Good
I
night,
guess we'll
everyone.
just close this out, and everyone can move over to voice. That's going to do it for the fan favorite award and player of the season and everything else. So, congrats to all of our winners. All right, bye guys.